Before we go into the acknowledgement of land, I just wanted to share with you a reflection that I had recently in the beginning of the Torah and also the Christian Bible. If you read in Genesis, there are lots of commands that God is giving. Let this happen, let that happen, do this, do that. The very, very first question that is ever asked is this: where are you? He says it to Adam in the Garden of Eden. That's the very first question that God asks of humankind. Where are you? And I think it's an important question because, as we have come to realize, it's important to pause and reflect and think, not just where am I in my life, but where are my feet? Where is my home? Where do I reside in this moment? So with that in mind, I would like to answer that question with this: that we would pause to recognize the ground upon which we are sitting, standing, and living. We acknowledge its rich and complex history and pay our respects to its original custodians, their ancestors and generations emerging, brothers and sisters of us all. We give thanks for their millennia of care of this land. In peace and in gratitude, we honor all peoples, all origins, all identities, and all those for whom this land is home. May the lessons of the past teach and guide us for the future. Now, if you received the notification which Leandra very generously sent out to everybody, just by a show of hands or a demonstration, does everybody have a candle? Because this seems very apropos to what we want to do for marking. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I have mine here, and we're going to light it together in a mindful way. So in the lighting of this candle, which will burn throughout the service, we'd like to light it for ourselves, that we may also experience the renewal of this new year. We will light it for those that we love, for those who are not here today but want to be. We light it for those with whom we have struggled or disagreed recently and in this year, whom maybe we have hurt or who have hurt us. We light it for our beloved community and the community of our family and neighbors. And we light it for our planet, Mother Earth, the holding container of us all. And in that spirit, let's sing about the joy and the meaning of us gathering together. It's going to be the hymn We Gather Together, number 349. The words will be in the chat. We gather together. In a few moments, we will listen to the sound of the shofar, which is an essential part of the Rosh Hashana observance. And this, of course, is a ritual packed with meaning, but there are two that I want to share with you. Actually, three. The shofar used to resemble the sound of a trumpet blast to note the crowning of a king or a queen. Its deeper significance, of course, is to blast a reminder that these next 10 days are about drawing close to God, Spirit, the essence of life, and the steps that we can do to do this mindfully and humbly. The second thought around this, of course, is that repentance, the word can be quite loaded. And I often like to think of this, as one of my old teachers used to say, as weeding your own garden. It's often easier to point out the weeds in others' gardens, and harder still sometimes to take an objective look at our life, at one's life, and see where we may have erred, been unkind, acted consciously or unconsciously in ways that may have been harmful. And thirdly, the shofar is a reminder that a ram took the place of Isaac when Abraham was about to sacrifice his son, his only son at that point. Again, this can seem a very religious thing, but in essence, it's a reminder that to live a life of kindness, a life for the greater good, to tread gently, as W.B. Yeats said, one sometimes needs to sacrifice things or to let go of things to which we find ourselves holding tenaciously. If you will, it's a call to think about greed versus need. And in talking and planning for today's service, I spoke in a lovely time with Jacqui, who you'll meet very shortly. And it was her who inspired me to remember, of course, that this is a time of a sensory journey. And sound not only is audible, but also inaudible. So there's the other end of the spectrum, which is silence. And years ago, I went hiking in Joshua Tree with my good friend, whose ancestors on her father's side were from the Hopi Nation. She and I went deep into the desert, miles from anything or anyone, and we walked quite mindfully, hardly speaking. And at some point, she made me stop. And it was rather funny because she put her fingers to her lips and went, shh, and said, listen. And I realized in that moment that sound does indeed, to quote that great sage Paul Simon again, silence does have a sound. It's thick, it's deep. You can hear the land, and you can also hear the memories that it contains. And you can also hear yourself melding with it. So, with that in mind, I wanted to share with you the reading. It's a quote from Rachel Naomi Remen. You may be familiar with her books, My Grandfather's Blessings and Kitchen Table Wisdom. And if you know Krista Tippett's podcast On Being, which I'm a huge fan of and I'm a regular listener to, and you haven't done so yet, I highly recommend you listen to her interview with Rachel, especially the one where she explores grief and loss in a profound and thought-provoking way. Also, she does something on healing. I recommend them both. And this is what Rachel says about silence. Perhaps the most important thing we bring to another person is the silence in us. Not the sort of silence that is filled with unspoken criticism or hard withdrawal. The sort of silence that is a place of refuge, of rest, of acceptance of someone as they are. We are all hungry for this other silence. It is hard to find. In its presence, we can remember something beyond this moment, a strength on which to build a life. Silence is a place of great power and healing. And with that in mind, while we're here together and in our chairs with feet on the ground, let's enjoy a few moments of communal, collective silence together. For the joy of this moment, the joy of silent being together, I'm so grateful. I'm going to hand you over now to my colleague, interfaith colleague, Jacqui Benson, who is beaming into you from the neighborhood next to mine here in Cape Town. And she wants to share a few moments with you of reflection and also a very special prayer. She'll explain to you in more detail. Jacqui, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being with us, and a very, very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Pippa, and hello to everybody. Just one small point of correction. My pronouns are they, them. And just such a privilege. Thank you for asking me to be here with all of you today. I won't be staying that long because I'm dashing off to get ready to go to synagogue, which starts in about an hour from now. But really, it's an opportunity to just share with a different community and connect, which is one of the beauties. If there's many beautiful things that have come out of this COVID world, it's the opportunity to connect across the world. And that cannot be taken for granted. And I'm just very present to this particular Rosh Hashana. There's a lot of new things in my own life and an opportunity to celebrate, and also just connecting with others and being present and most humbled by what's happening in the world and what part and role do I get to bring to it. So just to give you a small sense, it's the first Rosh Hashana that my spouse and I, we're just newly married, 6 months. And we are having our first Rosh Hashana in our home. We couldn't have anybody around last year because of lockdown. And we're now preparing to have 14 people around with us for dinner tonight. And that really is an opportunity as we're creating our own community, where before we were with other members of our family in other homes, we're now in our home. And that's one of the reflections for me, is about family and about connection and recognizing what's so important at this time. I was very humbled earlier this week to connect with 4 people. In the work that I do, I do a lot of transformation work as well. And I was very humbled to connect to 4 people who are in Camp 13 in Kakuma in Kenya, which is a refugee camp. They're all members of the LGBTIQA+ community. And they literally are people who have fled from, in fact, all 4 of them from Uganda. And what I was very humbled by is, in the midst of us here in South Africa, we've got load shedding. In fact, Pippa and I both are in the suburb where we currently have rotational electricity going off. We still manage to be online and be connected with people in other parts of the world. And here are 4 people who I was connecting with who don't have the freedom to be themselves. And what is it to be oneself and have agency over your own identity, where their very threat to life is at risk because of their gender and sexual identity. And that's even before they open their mouths. And that's part of the work that I do, is, connecting and how to advocate for people who are in situations where their voice cannot be heard, and share their story so that others may hear it and be present to it. And particularly at this time of the year, where we're appealing as Jews to Hashem for goodness, for connection, for being written for another year in the book of life, which gets sealed at Yom Kippur, and whether that year is granted to us, we only will find out every day that we wake up. But I'm very aware of, the things that we take for granted, in terms of our security, our family, being able to have maybe medical services and access, having electricity, water. And there are people on the planet who don't even have that. And this time of year is really about, for me now, putting out requests and being a space where we bring our collective energy and healing to what is required in the world. There's nothing else that I think COVID has taught all of us, is how to connect and what is really important. And so I request that those who may be celebrating Yom Rosh Hashana, those who are not, but if you know anyone who's Jewish or anybody at all who needs to just be reaching out to them, to do so, and include them in your prayers, include them in your energy, include them in your thoughts, so that we can collectively make this world a better one. And with that, I want to share with you a prayer, actually, that I will be reading tomorrow in synagogue, and something that my rabbis, I belong to Progressive Synagogue here in Cape Town. My rabbis put a lot of time and effort to put together, because we called on them to include something about diversity and inclusion in the services that we have. And so tomorrow I'm going to be reading this prayer. It's been in place for the last year, but it's out of work that we've done in our own community to create a greater space for people to be themselves and show up. let me just. Eloheinu ve'Elohei imotenu va'avotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, creator of humankind. Our tradition teaches that we are all descended from Ha'adam, the first human, so that no individual or group can rightfully claim superiority over another. Give us the courage to speak out against any form of prejudice and discrimination within and without our congregation. We commit ourselves to listen respectfully to each other, working to repair the damage and trauma of the past in order to make our congregation a welcoming and safe space for all. Brachua at Ya Eloheinu Ruach Haolam, Asher Kedishtanu b'mitzvotecha v'tzivanu lirdof tzedek, ulekabed kol nefesh v'shu tafet. You are blessed, O God, Spirit of the world, who makes us holy with your mitzvot and commands us to pursue justice and to honor all people and connections. And with that, I want to thank you, the opportunity to join you today and be with you and connect with you, and wish you all a beautiful day where you are, and thank you for the opportunity.
And Jacqui, I know that I speak for everybody. I want to first of all say thank you, Toda Rabba, for your time and your generosity of spirit and sharing that very, very sacred moment. I'm actually very moved because the brief conversation we had around it, you explained that this is something that was missing, and it was agreed that was missing in the prayers, and it's a huge and very important step that you're all taking, and a deep bow of honoring that and gratitude. Thank you. And one of my teachers always used to say, keep short accounts. And in that spirit, Jacqui, I want first of all to ask for your forgiveness for addressing you with the wrong pronoun, because that's a part of respect and love, and I want to pay that to you in from the very depths of my heart. So thank you. Thank you for drawing that to my attention. And also for biblical scholars or Torah scholars, of course, in my nervousness around not having electricity, my brain is not synapsing properly. And of course, it was not Abraham's only son. And herein lies the crux of one of the great stories from Genesis, that was in fact his second son, but he was his only son with Sarah, or Sarai. So I have to correct myself. Jacqui, enjoy it. You and your wife have a beautiful and safe and blessed Rosh Hashana together, and with your family and friends and your community, and thank you. And I think with that, it's a good time to blast the shofar and enter into this moment. Thank you, Jonathan. Go well, Jacqui. You're welcome to stay with us for as long as you want, but also to give you permission to leave and join your family and get to shul on time. I want to spend a few moments reflecting on the universal themes of Rosh Hashana. And as you know, and I'm sure many of you are aware, the rituals and the essence of the holiday lend themselves to so much interpretation and symbolism, some of which we've already touched upon. But there are 4 thoughts that I've pulled out of my reflection, and I'd love to share them with you. And the first one is, of course, as we know, Jacqui is rushing off now to be at synagogue, and families are gathering together. And it's a reminder to us, Jewish or not, that we are community. It's that Ubuntu spirit that we've talked about before. We are because each of us are. I am because you are because I am. And in the Midrash, which is the commentary on the Torah, so this is estimated about a 1500-year-old story, but it goes something like this. A group of people were traveling in a boat, and everyone had paid for their specific seat. And as the boat is in deeper and deeper water, further and further from the shore, at some point, one of the passengers takes out a drill and begins to drill a hole at the bottom of the boat beneath his seat. The people around him and his companions are shocked and also, understandably, very scared. "What are you doing?" they said. Replies the man, "Well, what concern of it is yours? I'm drilling under my own seat." It's a reminder that actions we take, even though we are convinced sometimes, and we're all guilty of this, I know, that we are essentially alone. Every action that we take does, in fact, impact on the community, on the world, on the planet. The second thing is to let you know, and sorry if I sound a little scholarly here, but it's important and it's interesting. We're actually drawing to an end, so this evening will be the end of it, of a 7-year cycle. And in the Jewish tradition, that last year of the 7 is known as the Shemitah. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But there are 3 important things about it that I wanted to pull out. The first is that in that year, so the year that has just been, and we're just about to end and enter into a new one, the Hebrew nation of past was commanded no sowing, no farming, no harvesting. It's a fallow year. And ultimately, if you think about it, a year of trust. Suddenly, you are no longer master of your own destiny. You no longer are responsible for the food that you're going to put on the table or sell at the marketplace. It is a year of having to relinquish control and enter into a deeper trust than you had done perhaps in the 6 years previously. A reminder, of course, that relying on ourselves, on our own capacity, on our own talents, on our own energies and efforts is, in fact, limited. And it was interesting to know, too, that if anything grew naturally on that land, so you have to understand, nothing was tilled, nothing was dug, nothing was planted. But of course, nature is what it is. And the command was that if anything grew on that land, it was communal. You had to share it with the community. And it translates this time as release of the land. In other words, yes, that patch of land is your farm. You did pay good money for it. It has been in your family for generations. But it's a reminder on that 7th year, whose land is it really? And in the Aboriginal tradition, and you know my deep affection, experience, and respect for their wisdom, they always say this: we do not own the land owns us. The third thing is that this year that we're just drawing to a close, is a time for refocusing. A time where you're focusing not just on me, but on we. Not just on the physical, but also because you're having to give over control, learn to trust. It's a time of, if you're to grasp it fully, a time of spiritual deepening, of philosophical renewal, of allowing your own understanding to be increased and expanded. And a rabbi once said to me, it's a time when we focus more on why we are needed, which I think is very interesting. Why we are needed for us, for our families, our communities, and our world. He said, it's a time to focus on why we are needed and less on what we need. And as I said, Shemitah actually translates as the word release, letting go. And it's a time of forgiveness. And in the literal meaning, of course, it's a time of forgiveness of debts. But if we're to expand it, it's good to think of it in terms of releasing of debts in many respects in our relationships. Forgiving, as we know, ultimately sets us free, as well as the other person, which of course is all about the next 10 days of forgiveness. So I would like to close this with the wisdom that I learned from Lab Shul. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Lab Shul. It's the brainchild of Rabbi Amichai Lau-Lavie, right here in New York. It's an experimental, progressive, nomadic shul that commits itself to thinking outside the box and is utterly inclusive. And it considers itself even God optional. And this is how they termed reflection on Rosh Hashana. In this new year before us, let us rise in our roles as co-creators of a healthy, healing ecosystem of sacred, sustainable, and systemic love and justice. So perfect, so beautiful. Let me read that again. in this new year before us. Let us rise in our roles as co-creators of a healthy, healing ecosystem of sacred, sustainable, and systemic love and justice. Do I hear an amen? Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining with me as I've shared that reflection. And I'd like to hand over perhaps to Arlene or to Sonia if anybody would like to donate anything. I think the link for the offering plate is coming up now in the chat box. And do we have any announcements?
Yes, we do. First of all, Happy New Year to everyone. And thank you to you, Pippa, and to Jacqui for a beautiful Rosh Hashana service, complete with the hauntingly beautiful shofar. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, on Tuesday at 7 p.m., Sonia will lead a meditation. On Wednesday, and Sonia will talk a little bit more about this when I finish a few announcements, but on Wednesday, the conscious conversation will be in person at Sonia's home this Wednesday. Okay. My next announcement is a reminder that next week we will be meeting. Sonia will be leading the service. Yeah, we'll still be on Zoom next week. No, at Bristol next week. Yes, thank you. Also a reminder, if you haven't, filled out your postcards, please do so. The October date for mailing them is right around the corner. So please do complete that project. And finally, as you know, Debbie is recovering from a difficult surgery. And if you hadn't had a chance to prepare a meal yet, I know that she and Leandra would appreciate it. So whether you text Debbie or call or text me, I would relay the information to Debbie. And thank you to everyone who has been so supportive of Debbie and Leandra. I mean, through meals, through texts, through email. Thank you. Sonia, did you want to say more about Wednesday?
Yes, thank you so much, Arlene. And I echo Arlene's sentiments. Thank you for this beautiful, beautiful service and for bringing Jacqui to visit with us and all the wisdom that you shared. It was very inspirational to me. And I feel that this service is going to find its way into our service next weekend. So it was beautiful. Thank you. Yes, on Wednesday, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to have a conscious conversation in person. And afternoons are better than evenings for most of us. So I'm inviting anybody that's free this Wednesday at 2 p.m. at my house. I will email you the address. If you're interested, call me, text me, reach out to me. I'll send you the address if you don't have it. It's also in our directory. I'm not really, I'll have a little coffee and water and some cookies. If you'd like to bring something, that's up to you. But I wasn't going to make it really about food specifically. You're free to bring what you want if you'd like, but really more about conversation and to be able to do this a little more often if we can, to actually get together and talk and have a little heart-to-heart time. So for those of you who can make it, come, and if it's a nice day, I'll put some chairs in the backyard. If not, we could join in the home. So just let me know. Next weekend, we'll be at Bristol, and please RSVP Leandra if you are able to make it, because we still have a limited amount of people that are able to attend, and we'd love to have that our 20 max filled to the brim. it's always special to be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Can I come?
You can. We have a seat saved for you.
Just tell me what it is you want me to bring, and I'll bring it.
Just your heart. Just your heart, my friend. Yes. And we'll also, as you all know, we'll also be on Zoom next weekend.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Great. Well, we're going to close up shortly, but my closing words really are these. And that is, in all of this, I would have to say, if I could extract one thing from the Torah, having studied it, obviously I'm not a rabbi, though I have always been drawn to the idea of rabbinical study. I admire it so tremendously. My favorite would be from the book of Micah, because to my mind it succinctly and perfectly sums up what it is that we are called to do. As I mentioned earlier, why am I needed? That's the reflection. Why am I needed? And a beautiful Buddhist friend of mine always said is, one has to search one heart and say, there's so many things to do, there's so much need, there's so little time. The question is this: what is mine to do? And Micah answers it very succinctly, and I've paraphrased it this, and I'm sure everybody knows it. Do what is right, love mercy, walk humbly. That's it. Do what is right, love mercy, walk humbly. So if I'm to offer you a blessing, it can be really the very best blessing that one can offer in the Hebrew language, in the Jewish tradition, but of course, as we know, it's the blessing that of all traditions, religious or not, and it's this: peace, shalom, salam. And I've deliberately chosen this closing song for that reason. It's called East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem. I've actually been to Jerusalem, and I went before they erected the wall, and I'm actually glad that I did, because I think that I've seen walls in my time. I've seen the Berlin Wall. I've seen the wall in Belfast. I haven't seen the one on the border with Mexico, but these kind of walls do something to me. I find them heartbreaking, because they are the basis, the darkest of our human fears and prejudices and judgments and smallness, it's small-mindedness, as the Buddhists say. So the wall was erected in Jerusalem, and it's supposed to be a peacekeeping venture. But of course, what it's done is it's othered, and it's a symbol of the fight that persists in the Middle East. And it's a complex situation, and my reason for choosing this is not to enter into the political fray, but just to join with this beautiful, he's actually Israeli, his name is David Broza. I had the great honor of seeing him play in the desert in Israel many moons ago. He's a pacifist, an activist, and he's a peace activist above all. And he's singing with no less than Wycliffe Jean. You may know him from the Fugees. I was a huge fan way back when. And they have created this song called East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, the bringing down of the wall. And the constant refrain is Shalom, Salam. So I bless you, I bless us, and I bless this weekend, and I bless this new year with Shalom, Salam. Thank you, Jonathan.
Same face in the Gaza is the same face I see out in California. Same face in Jericho is the same face I see down in Mexico. Same face in Tel Aviv is the same face I see out in New Jersey. So many places all share the same faces. East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, Shalom, Salam. East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, Shalom, Salam. Same face in the Haifa, it's the same face out in Nevada. Same face in the blues, it's the same face out in New Orleans. Shalom, Salam. Eyes in the sky, ears to the walls, yeah. Wondering if change will ever come at all. Spread a little love, spread in the morning, yeah. Spread a little love in the evening. Spread a little love before you put your head down. Maybe when you wake up, the world will be a better place. East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, Shalom, Salam. East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, Shalom, Salam. Oh, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, Shalom,
Shalom, Salam. So it really is now just a moment to pause in gratitude to you and to this moment. And if you have your candle, we're going to extinguish it together. But before we do, in the spirit of all that I've shared today, especially in terms of why are we needed, community, and the chance for renewal and repair, to share this with you. Peace in my heart brings peace to my family. Peace in my family brings peace to my community. Peace in my community brings peace to my nation. and peace in my nation, brings peace to the world. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And we cannot finish a Rosh Hashana service without apples and honey. So if you have received a message and you did prepare in advance, the symbolism of this is ultimately to wish you, your family, your friends, your community, our nation and our world a very sweet, safe, and beautiful New Year. Shana tova.
If you liked this video, please like us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on the bell to be notified whenever we post a new video.